And welcome in, everybody, to Off of the Helmets. Let's talk Dallas Cowboys football. I'm Brady Tinker. Happy Super Bowl week, and the weekend is coming. Super Bowl 57 is upon us. I anticipate a really good game. I think Philadelphia, we'll get to this later, is maybe a little better, a little deeper, but Kansas City has Reed and Mahomes and 28 people on their roster who have played in a Super Bowl. I think that makes a difference. All right, so here we are. The Cowboys are committed to a contract extension for Dak Prescott. I said extension. It's a $49 million hit to the cap in 2023 and more than that in 2024. So they can rework or they can extend. And Stephen Jones said in the last week, we anticipate Dak being the quarterback of this Dallas Cowboys football team for at least 10 years. Him falling in the Romo ilk of 15 years, or back before that, the Aikman and the Staubach ilk. Those are not quite the same ilks, but I get what he's saying. Jerry's riding Dak Prescott, period. Jerry loves Dak as much as he loved Tony. He's staying. And Jerry firmly believes that Dak Prescott is the guy who can help lead this team to the Super Bowl. So here we go. Let's talk Cowboys. Next 10 years, did I say? I think that's what they said. Let's talk Cowboys right now. So it's Off of the Helmets, and it's courtesy of our friends at East Coast Sports Investors, and I appreciate them so much. I am live from Dallas, Texas, where I'm all over what's going on with your Cowboys, and I do have my red Chiefs gear on underneath. Don't hate. I'm from Kansas City. I'm a true fan. So happy Super Bowl week. We have items, check to get through, and we got 30 minutes. So item number one will be Dak Prescott, which will not be a restructure, I am told. It will be an extension. Item number two will be the new offensive coordinator. And you're like, wait a minute. You told me last week the offensive coordinator was going to be Mike McCarthy. He was calling the plays. He is. We'll get to that. Brian Schottenheimer will implement Mike's offense. Mike will call the plays. It's his team. Item number three, the Cowboys will add a wide receiver, and most likely not in the draft. DeAndre Hopkins is on their list. Item number four, drafting a young quarterback. This has been talked about since I've been in this town, all the way back to the 80s, and certainly when Bill Parcells got here, he and Jerry said, we're going to draft a quarterback essentially every year. Then that way you get lucky. You find one in round 4 or 5. I don't know if anybody believed that, but they believe it now because Brock Purdy was drafted in round 7 for the 49ers. Item number 5, Tony Pollard stays. Zeke Elliott most likely goes. Pollard stays with probably what is a franchise tag. We'll get to that. And item number 6, Super Bowl 57 predictions. We got a lot to do. So let's get to Dak's contract. If you're Dak fans, then you're all for whatever it is that I'm going to tell you. If you believe you'll, quote, never win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott or with Jerry Jones, you can't do anything about the second one, but you can do something about the first one. But the Cowboys, Stephen and Jerry, and certainly Mike McCarthy, and Will McClay, and on down the line, all really, really love Dak Prescott. And if I was able to get you in the locker room or get you to a lunch with Dak Prescott, you'd love him too. The NFL Man of the Year, as he was just awarded in the last day or so, is that man. He's a wonderful kid. He is a really good leader. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's got a pretty damn good arm. He's brave as he can be, and he represents the Cowboys brand the way the Cowboys want him to. He doesn't quite read defenses the way that you wish he would. They're going to do something about that. Steven said, quote, Dak deserves to be at the number of the top 10 or 12 quarterbacks in the league. So that number this year, before all discounts and tricks and fakery go on to make their number smaller, is essentially $40 million. The top 10 to 12 quarterbacks will cost their team in some manner or another this year, in 2023, $40 million a year. Dak deserves to be in that group. This roster is being bolstered once again as we sit here now, just days before the Super Bowl, to go and compete again. 12 wins, 12 wins. Playoffs, playoff win. It's getting better. Maybe you don't think it's as good as it should be, but this roster wasn't as good as any of the teams that were in the Final Four. It was close, but it wasn't quite as good. So the Cowboys have something to do. Said Jerry, I'm very strong on Dak. He is a unique player, a unique person. He has a unique set of skills, which made me think, does he? What would you tell me those unique set of skills are? Besides being a wonderful human and a good teammate, I'll take that, but it won't win you a Super Bowl. So what are those unique skills? It immediately made me think back to Dak to what Jerry said about Dak, maybe with 3 or 4 weeks left to go in the season, and that was plan on seeing Dak Prescott much, much more involved in the running game. So not, well, I see man-to-man and everyone's turning around in the other direction, I'll go get 5 yards. That's effective, and he doesn't do it enough, but that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about he's big and strong. That ankle, knee, leg, and all that catastrophic stuff seems to be now completely behind him, maybe for the first time since it happened. And in 2023, this is going to be a running football team, a defensive football team, and the quarterback is going to run the football 5, 6, 7, 8 times every single game. I think you can almost count on it. The Walter Payton Man of the Year is Dak Prescott. Jerry, Steven, Mike McCarthy all made the decision without asking Dak to get rid of Kellen Moore or to not re-sign Kellen Moore, who quickly got another job. Good for him. Something different needed to happen with this offense. And you would hear me say some weeks, I'm not sure the offensive coordinator did the best he could do to help the quarterback. And I have thought that for a while. But when you look at the statistics, you say, wait a minute, what the fuck are you talking about? He scored 34.6 points a game in the 11 or 12 games that he played this year. He was great. The offense was great. But you and I both know it wasn't. When it really needed to be, in the clutchest of times, there were far too many 3-and-outs. There were far too many, what was that? What was that play and that play? And you ran a trick play then and weird things. And the truth is, I've told you this for a while, there was no system in Dallas while Kellen Moore was here for the offense. There wasn't. There was a style. There were a calling of plays, and sometimes they were genius. And when things were in a rhythm, when the game, the running game was going well, or turnovers came your way, or you were in proper positions on the football field, plus positions on the football field, all of a sudden you'd see points. I mean, they scored 40 against Philadelphia. Kansas City's predicted to hang 23 on them. That's all they're possibly going to get. But the Cowboys hung 40 on them on December 24th. How could that possibly happen? Well, the offense is great, but it's not. But it's not that far off. So Dak's going to stay. The truth is, for those of you who are really mad right now and who've been mad about hearing about this, there is no quick way to move away from Dak Prescott. He has 2 years left on a 4-year, $161 million contract, of which essentially all of it is guaranteed. His number against the cap, if you do nothing for 2023, is $49 million. At that point, you can't even re-sign some of the players on your own team that you want. Connor McGovern can't even come back. Leighton Vander Esch can't come back, et cetera, et cetera. They can't even come back, much less going to get a couple of additional free agents. Because if you look at the Cowboys roster and you watch them play the 49ers and you watch them play the best of teams, you thought, we're pretty damn good. And then you wanted to blame it on the coach or the quarterback. But the truth is, you're probably 3 or 4 really good players short of being in that Final Four mix, especially given that this is your quarterback. Mahomes ain't on your team. So this is the quarterback that you've got. He's a good quarterback. And in the right offensive situations, he can be a very good quarterback. And I do believe he can be a quarterback that takes this team to a Super Bowl. I do. So restructuring is not coming. Extension is coming. And it's going to be in the neighborhood of take away these final 2 years and add another 8, and we're at 10 more. And 10 more years of Dak, but it will be structured in such a way that the money can be parsed out over 10 years. He may not play 10 years. Let's hope he does. But that way they will be able to handle the cap. The cap goes up a significant amount this year. If they can cut what would be $35 million off Dak's number this year and something similar the next, then you can go out and add free agents. Then you can keep your own. Then you can sign Diggs, sign CD, and whoever else it is that you think that needs to be on this team for at least another 4 or 5 years. All of those things are possible, but only if you either rework or extend Dak. And what's coming is an extension. Item number 2, Brian Schottenheimer is your offensive coordinator. Wait a minute. You told me McCarthy's calling the play. This offense is going to go exactly how Mike McCarthy wants it to go. He's putting his job on the line, and I don't believe it's next year or bust. But if this offense combined with Brian Schottenheimer doesn't do something to help make Dak better and get this Cowboys team to another level, and we'll talk about the overall plan in a minute, then Mike McCarthy's job is on the line. And you know what? Every NFL coach's job is on the line. Every NFL coach is basically out after 4 or 5 years at the longest. He ain't afraid. I really like Mike a lot, and I like when I'm in the situation to see him working and or talking to his team, they respond to him. They respond to the head coach. They respond to the defensive coordinator. This is a tight knit bunch, and that part does matter. If you're going to have success, you have to have people on the same page. And it's a little like herding cats. 53 active guys, another 17 or so on the practice squad. You're up to 70 rich, young human beings who like doing whatever the F they want to do because it's what they've done most of their lives, because they're world-class athletes, and now they wear a star on the side of their helmet, and they're in the league with the shield. How would you like? Yeah, I don't want to teach grade school because I won't be able to get them to do what I want. I especially don't want to teach the Dallas Cowboys room with Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones in charge and try and get all of these men on the same page to do what I think they should do for us to win. A virtually impossible job. It's the reason Jason Garrett stayed so long, because he was good at dealing with the family and all that came with it, and it's a lot, and in getting men to do what they don't want to do. He was good at it. I believe Mike McCarthy's better, considerably better. So the offensive coordinator is Brian Schottenheimer. He has been with the Rams. He's been with Seattle. Really, his biggest check mark probably is that Russell Wilson's career in Seattle was at its best. Not Russ cooking, Russ being the quarterback who threw passes in rhythm and in timing because the running game was very good and the defense was very good. That's the type of team the Cowboys are after. They're after that Seattle team. They're after the current San Francisco team. That's what they're trying to do, because they don't have an A1 quarterback. They do not have a top 6 quarterback. They just don't. So if you don't have that, but you have a pretty good quarterback, then you go to this, and your roster and the depth chart says, you know what, pretty damn good on defense. We've led the league in turnovers the last 2 years on defense, but that hasn't happened since the 70s Steel Curtain. We can play defense. We can shut down the opposition defensively. We can run the football, although we're going to have to do something with this offensive line. And that's a way to win at football, because you're playing winning football on the defensive line and the offensive line. Pretty damn good. So Schottenheimer is in, and he's essentially going to do what he's told. He and Mike will sit down, and every other offensive mind that they can bring together and say, Mike's going to say, this is what we want. And Mike's going to say, we're going to run lots of 2, 3, and sometimes 4 tight end offense. We're going to run the football ad nauseum, and we're going to build a simple West Coast type offense with quick throws, right? Just very San Francisco. Everything works in such a rhythm in the San Francisco offense because you're terrified of the run. And it works even better with Dak Prescott as your quarterback, because he adds, as does Jalen Hurts, he adds that element of, well, now I gotta, there's 2 running backs in the backfield. There's what I gotta account for 6 guys when he says hike, including the quarterback. That makes it tougher. That's where this thing is headed. So if we're going to run the football and we're going to help Dak friendly now means not what Romo friendly used to mean, because that always meant more weapons, more chances for Tony to throw. That's not what this means. This means we're going to get Dak another wide receiver that's sure-handed, that's where he's supposed to be, to go along with CD, and we'll hope Gallup gets better. And what we're really going to do, though, is base everything off of the run. So I look at the offensive line, and I say Tyler Smith, fantastic draft pick, great job of coaching across the line. How the offensive line coach got fired at the end of this year, I have no idea. I thought they were spectacular based on where my estimation was that they would end up at the end of the season. But he's gone. Tyler Smith plugs in. Maybe you have a consistent Pro Bowler. He took care of penalties. He was outstanding. You have to say it was great. Connor McGovern is a free agent. I think he's one that the Cowboys will try and keep, but right now you have no left guard. Tyler Biadasz, you hated 2 years ago. Now you realize those Wisconsin offensive linemen are pretty damn good. Biadasz is a good center. He'll be back. The best offensive lineman in football is Zach Martin. He plugs in again at right guard, and he may play there another 20 years because he's freaking fantastic. And at right tackle, you have no one. So Terrence Steele got hurt. He is a free agent, and I meant to look, unrestricted or restricted. Something tells me that Terrence Steele may be a restricted free agent. I don't know why I think that, but I apologize for not having it. One way or another, Terrence Steele may or may not be here. It was a pretty severe injury. So how much money are you spending to bring back Terrence Steele, who at the beginning of the year we were all worried about coming off of an injury? That's a discussion. So in theory, you have no right tackle, you have no left guard, and you have no depth. There's a young man named Ball here that got drafted in round 5 or something. Obviously, they didn't like him much this year. He didn't make much progress because we never saw him. And your depth might be Tyron Smith, who will only be 33. Wouldn't you have thought he's 35? Doesn't it seem like he's been playing forever? It does to me, and I think that body is older than the 33 years that it will say on his birth certificate with the injuries and with just the literal size and power that he's played with his whole career. So I don't know if Tyron's coming back. Jason Peters was your other guy. Pretty nice to have around. From what I understand in the locker room, outstanding. Everybody fed off him. They talked to him, and he helped a lot of the younger guys, but he's going to be 42. And he was sort of in and out as to when he could play. So maybe, I don't know if he wants to play or not, but that's it. So there is no depth. And I just told you we're going to run the football more because that will help Dak, and we'll go to this quick West Coast offense. Better do something about that offensive line. So in my estimation right now, when I start to tell you who they're going to draft, they're looking at cornerback, because I don't believe Anthony Brown comes back coming off of an injury, and he will be a free agent. They're looking at offensive line, and they're looking at any other impactful defensive players that really are something else. It might be a safety. It might be a cornerback. It might be a defensive end. It might be a defensive tackle, and I don't really care. Draft with the first pick in the draft somebody on the defensive side of the football or an offensive tackle that you think plugs in and plays and is a bad human. That's what they'll need to do. I'm fine with them drafting a quarterback, but it can't be before round 5 or 6. I'm fine with them drafting a wide receiver if they think they see somebody, but it can't be before round 5 or 6 as well. The rest of those things need to be addressed. Item number 3, adding a wide receiver. There have been rumors that DeAndre Hopkins is somebody that the Cowboys are interested in. I personally am all for that. DeAndre Hopkins will be 30, pushing 31 next year, but he's had 7 1,000-yard seasons. What he does is run really good routes. Nope, he's not fast, never really has been. What he also does is catch the damn ball. It doesn't ricochet off his hands. He doesn't miss shit. DeAndre Hopkins is a hell of a player, and the numbers for him are $19 million next year and down to $15 million in 24. Now, I read deeper into the contract, and it said that he could get out of that 24 contract with certain goals that were set in his 4-year contract. He ain't making them. He missed 7 games this year for suspension, and he missed 6 or 7 games the year before because of an injury. He's not reaching any of those goals. So DeAndre Hopkins' numbers are 19 and 15. When I tell you that the top wide receivers in football next year are going to make $32-33 million, don't you kind of like DeAndre Hopkins for 19 and 15? I do. I do indeed. He's good. And he will be where Dak needs him to be, and he will catch the football when he needs to catch it. And some of those things did not happen for the Dallas Cowboys this season. Let's just face it. Item number 4, drafting a young quarterback. The Cowboys, I think, were sort of reminded that it would be a good idea when they watched San Francisco go through, 4 quarterbacks this year? 3 quarterbacks, and they ended up with a 4th who couldn't play. But they went through 3 quarterbacks on this team with Trey Lance, with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then with Brock Purdy, and almost didn't miss a step. It says a lot about the coaching. It says a lot about the offense and the offensive line. And it says a lot for, you know what? You might find a smart kid whose brain understands and processes what he's seeing in front of him and is able to go through a rudimentary offense in the 7th round, because it's what they did. So the Cowboys were reminded, oh, that's right. Parcells and I, we said we were going to start drafting quarterbacks maybe every other year. We need to do that. So they are going to draft a quarterback, are the Dallas Cowboys. And one of them that they're interested in, it won't surprise you because the Cowboys love local stories or Arkansas stories. Max Duggan is on their radar, the TCU quarterback that was phenomenal this year, declared oddly enough before the playoffs started. I thought that was strange. I thought that took away a little bit from his TCU teammates in the story, but whatever. You can forgive him. Duggan is going into the draft. He's from Council Bluffs, Iowa. Maybe there's some symmetry there, right? Brock Purdy, Iowa State, Council Bluffs. Maybe they even know each other. Maybe they're distant cousins. So Max Duggan, I can't find anybody to tell me how early he goes. Seems like round 5-ish at this point. I mean, listen, he threw touchdowns of essentially 10 his first year, 15 his second year, 16 his third year, and then 32 touchdowns this year with, I believe, only 10 or 8 interceptions. So they like him. They like his moxie. They like certainly his toughness. He played to the point where a couple times I thought he might die on the field. He was so wanted to win. He was so willing to do whatever it took in running the football, passing the football, taking a hit. He's the kind of guy emotionally and mentally that looks like this Dallas Cowboys team continues to say that they want to be. I'm a Max Duggan fan, aren't you? Wouldn't you be excited if they drafted Max Duggan around 5 or 6 and sort of think, especially you that hate Dak Prescott, you'd have in the back of your mind, let's see how he looks in camp. Maybe he unseeds Dak Prescott. He ain't unseeding a guy who's going to end up here for 10 more years, my friends, not unless he gets hurt. Item number 5, Tony Pollard stays. Might seem easy. To others, it might seem difficult because the bottom line is this will be Tony Pollard's 5th year. What have we all learned in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years about running backs? You don't draft them in the first round because they automatically get 5-year contracts, and then after 3, they'll hold out, Zeke. And you don't sign them or give them a damn dime after they've played 5 years. It's a brutal game. Everybody on the defensive line in the middle weighs 370 pounds. Everybody on the outside weighs 250 to 280 pounds and can run like a deer. There are linebackers fill in the gaps who can run like a deer. And all the safeties come up and they can hit, at least on the teams that I want to watch. So how do you sign Pollard, who had 1,378 yards and 12 total touchdowns in year number 5? He's going to make a shit ton of money. Well, he got hurt. So that will help a little bit. They can also franchise tag him because they own that right. And I believe that that's what the Cowboys are talking about doing. And in asking people much smarter than me who know about the NFL better than I do and understand all of these nuances about do's and don'ts, the top 2 people that I asked said it's a piece of cake. You do not extend runners, but you do extend playmakers. And Tony Pollard, clearly, we would all agree, it took him too long to ascend to the role where he got more carries. But once he did, he's fantastic. He's shot through a cannon through little gaps on either side of the center, which you wouldn't think he would be powerful enough to get through. But he's not powerful. Not that he's not. He's fast. He was among the tops in the NFL in the last 2 years at broken tackles. Yet you look at him, you're like, he didn't overpower anybody. Nope. He hit the hole so quickly that a hand got on him but couldn't bring him down because he shot through a cannon getting through those holes. 1,378 total yards, 12 touchdowns in his 5-year career. Now, I'll compare this to Zeke, and damn, I wish I had the exact numbers. But I will tell you, in Zeke's rookie year here in 2016, he had upwards of 350 carries, okay, coming out of Ohio State where he'd had 330 carries. Zeke was going to get old at roughly year 4 or 5. That's why he held out in year 3. He knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming, and the Cowboys paid him. And he's been a terrific Dallas Cowboy. He has. But he's finished. He was very good early in the year, especially getting the end zone. I think he had 10 touchdowns this year. It was impressive. Some of the runs in the red zone where it's hard to find space, he still had those magic feet and those great hips, and he got into the end zone with great regularity. But by the last 6 or 7 games of the year, he was gassed, and he averaged right around two yards a carry. The Cowboys are sentimental about Zeke. But with everything that is in front of them, having to extend Dak, needing to shore up the offensive line, needing to go either free agency or trade at wide receiver, the Cowboys do not have the luxury of keeping Zeke Elliott unless he's willing to play for $1 million, which he's not. He's already come out and said, I'll restructure, I'll work this thing down. He's a post-June 1st cut this year, I believe is correct, and they can save nearly $13 million on June 2nd by cutting Zeke Elliott. I anticipate that happening. You cannot keep an old running back just because you like him. He was a good Cowboy. I wondered early in his career, as good as he was, if he didn't have too much, I don't know, in him that was going to keep him from being good. Too much out in the public, too much mouth, too much whatever. And the truth is, we would all have to say Zeke Elliott has been a really good Cowboy. He's an all-time, in theory, Dallas Cowboy with the way he handled himself and the way he played in his 6 years here in Dallas. No doubt. But he doesn't stay. Tony Pollard does stay because I told you Zeke had roughly 350 carries his rookie year. Tony Pollard in 4 years has 510 total carries. In 4 years. That's not many carries. So that his body has to be in better shape. Granted, it was an injury that cost him in the playoffs. 510 carries in 4 years at 5.1 yards per carry. He never caught the football enough, and he really didn't catch the football enough this year. 15 catches his first year, 28 his second year, 39 his third year, and 39 as well this year. This year was better, though, because it was roughly 350 yards receiving, and he had 3 more touchdowns receiving, so he had a total of 12. And we saw the best of Tony Pollard. And I would say at 500 carries, as long as this injury is going to heal, which everybody believes that it is, the surgery that he had on that ankle, it was explained to me, but I didn't understand it, but essentially wasn't 8 screws and a plate. It was none of those things. Him or what they called it. But essentially it was sewing it up this way, this way, this way, and they didn't have to put anything in him that will give him trouble getting through metal detectors, so they believe he's going to be fine. Franchising Tony Pollard will cost roughly $10.5 million. So that's not a $20 million running back or $25 million running back. It's also not a $1 million running back. But $10 million, well, let's put it this way. That's a little bit less than you spent on Dalton Schultz this year. That make you feel better. So Tony Pollard, in my estimation, stays with a franchise tag. If he's this good next year, you know what they'll do? They'll franchise tag him again. But it still leaves you another running back left to get, because Zeke will be gone, and we all have already decided this is going to be a running and defensive football team. So Malik Davis, I assume, will be here again, but that's a good third or fourth running back. You'll draft a running back late. You'll sign a couple of free agents who had athletic ability, who've never gotten the chance at the right place, maybe somebody in Carolina, whoever it may be, and you'll load 5 or 6 running backs in here and see if you can get 3 that you really like out of the group, and you will go to being a running football team. Item number last, Super Bowl 57 is here. Kansas City versus Philadelphia. I imagine most of you are rooting for my team. There's red here for a reason. I'm born and raised in Kansas City. I will be rooting for the Chiefs. Don't know what I believe is going to happen, because it is hard. No offense, but you guys haven't been through a Super Bowl in a while. It's very hard as a fan to watch a Super Bowl. Now, most of you that are my age remember the Super Bowls in 92, 93, and 95, and you had a pretty good feeling your team was going to win. But those were, except for the last one, those were non-salary cap years. The truth is, the Dallas Cowboys during those years had, at least in 92 and 93, 2 of the best football teams possibly ever assembled in the history of the NFL, flatly. The best players, the most good players, the best replacement players, the best coaching staff, those teams were phenomenal, okay? I believe the Kansas City Chiefs are pretty damn good. I know the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty damn good, but they're not that good. So neither one of these teams, in my estimation, is going to run out and kick the shit out of the other. I think these are 2 really evenly matched football teams. If you line them up and you say, who's better on the defensive line? Well, it's probably the Eagles, except the Chiefs have Chris Jones, and he is a hell of a player, was right there Defensive Player of the Year with Micah Parsons. How about offensive line? Kelsey's brother, Travis Kelce's brother, Jason, is the center. He's great. He's going to the Hall of Fame along with his brother. And that offensive line for Philadelphia is really, really good. They're a fantastic running team, largely because the quarterback can run, and that makes it tough to cover them and to diagnose what they're doing. And 2, you can put almost anybody right now behind that offensive line. Note Kenneth Gainwell, a guy you probably don't know much, who's been very, very big in the last 3 or 4 games after it was always Miles Sanders. A little reason for that is, 1, it's nice to run fresh bodies in, including even Boston Scott and Jalen Hurts. They essentially have 4 running backs. But the other reason is Miles Sanders is a free agent, and I don't think Philadelphia is going to re-sign him, because, back to the point, you don't re-sign running backs who've been in the league 4 or 5 years. You just don't. So Gainwell will stay and presumably take over the feature position in Philadelphia. That's why you're seeing more of him. There are prop bets, by the way, out there on Kenneth Gainwell at 17, 18, 19 yards for this game against the Chiefs. Get you all of that you can get. I'm just saying. Bet $5-10, have some fun with it. Gainwell on the over of a prop bet at 19 or 20 yards against the Chiefs. So why do the Chiefs have a chance to win? 5 straight AFC Championship games. They've been in 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. They've won 1, and they got killed in 1 because they didn't have an offensive tackle on either side to protect Mahomes against Tampa. Andy Reid is now coaching his 4th Super Bowl, and while the Chiefs have 23 new players and or rookies on their roster this year, they also have 28 players on the roster who have played in a Super Bowl. That's valuable. They have a coaching staff full of people who have been through 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. There's great value to that as well. And the other thing is, in his history, when you give Andy Reid an extra week to prepare, his overall number as a coach is now 49-11. He wins. He's creative. He's goofy. He's unafraid. And he will allow his team, especially on the offensive side of the football, to do damn near anything because he's got a magician at quarterback. What this will come down to is what most big games come to against really good teams, and that is turnovers. How many times will each team turn the ball over? If one team turns it over twice and the other team doesn't turn it over, you can almost guarantee the team that turned it over 0 times is going to win. The other thing that we're all looking for, and none of us really knows, is how healthy is Patrick Mahomes' ankle? Is it 80 or 90%? He looked pretty good against Cincinnati, certainly not healthy, but pretty good, better than I thought for a high ankle sprain. And then the same with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts didn't have to do much in 2 wins in the playoffs. San Francisco rolled over and died because they ended up without a quarterback. And the Giants sort of had shot their load prior to that game, even making the playoffs and then winning a game. It was a great season for the Giants, but they weren't good enough to beat Philadelphia. So one's a 31-7 win, one's a 38-7 win. It's 2 whippings. And on the surface, you'd say, my God, they're too overpowering. But the truth is, they didn't do much offensively against San Francisco because they didn't have to. And Jalen Hurts has not looked healthy in terms of running, and even more so, he hasn't looked healthy throwing the ball. He had a couple of deep shots to A.J. Brown in each game. He missed them. He wouldn't have normally missed them. So is it nerves of the playoffs, or is his shoulder still hurting? I think what I saw is a guy who knows his shoulder hurts, knows A.J. Brown is man-to-man, knows there's no safety up there, and he loads it up and he throws it as hard as he possibly can because his shoulder hurts. And how could he possibly overthrow him? And he overthrew him. So that's a man who's hurt, who's playing through it, and who's trying to estimate, best he can, what to do with the longer throws. If he can't make deep throws down the field, then Kansas City is going to be at the line of scrimmage, and they're going to do what they like to do, which is show blitz a lot. The one area that Jalen Hurts hasn't been very good at is when there are 5 men on the line of scrimmage rushing or more. When that happens, his passer rating drops off precipitously. So the Chiefs would like to show a lot of men at the line of scrimmage to squelch whatever running plays he wants to run because there's too many men up there to be blocked by a great offensive line, and try and get him to have to make decisions at the line of scrimmage where he's going with the football and when he's going to try and go deep. Now, dangerous for the Chiefs because they have 2 really good wide receivers in Philadelphia. Devontae and A.J. Brown are friggin' good. Goddard's good. I mean, the Eagles are good. So I'm not telling you how this is going to go. I'm telling you what I think I see. And in the end, I got 24-23 Chiefs because Mahomes, because MVP, because this was the season that the over and under you could have gotten on the Chiefs was 9.5 when the season began. How many games are they going to win? 9.5. Very disrespectful, but everybody felt like Tyreek being gone and them reshuffling their entire secondary was too much to overcome. Plus, the AFC West was going to be great, right? Oakland was going to be great. Wrong. Denver was going to be great because Russ was going to cook. Wrong. The Chargers were going to be great. They were okay. They underachieved, and somehow that coach is still there, and so is your offensive coordinator. So that's the breakdown. I don't know if I told you anything that you want to do other than Kenneth Gainwell and a prop bet over 19 yards rushing. That one I like. I like the Chiefs, but then I'm from Kansas City. This one will be close, and it wouldn't surprise me if it went the other way at all. The Eagles have more good players, have more depth on their team, and probably better on both lines of scrimmage. If you subscribe to the as old as I am theory of these games are won at the line of scrimmage, then certainly the Eagles are going to win, but I don't think so. I'm Brady Tinker. This is Off of the Helmets, and I'll talk to you next Friday right here after the Super Bowl. We'll have a lot more updates on the draft. Let's get into the draft next week. Names that I'm hearing that the Cowboys like, what they might do in free agency as well. DeAndre Hopkins was the only name I threw out that was a trade opportunity. We'll talk about a lot more of that because as good as this team is in back-to-back 12-win seasons, there are going to be a lot of free agents leaving. There are going to be holes here, and you're changing your thinking because this is no longer a passing football team. It's a defense and running football team that just needs to be able to pass it when it's time. I'm Brady Tinker for Off the Helmets and East Coast Sports Investors. Thanks for watching. I enjoyed it very much. I'll see you next Friday. Enjoy Super Bowl weekend. Go Chiefs. Wait. Okay, now.